All right, great. Welcome everybody to the Green Innovations webinar series. This is actually the first of 7 webinars that are planned in, May, today, June, July, and August, where different topics will be discussed and different partners of the Green Innovations initiative will be involved. For those who don't know Green Innovations is a project that aims to achieve establishing frameworks and bringing together actors and stakeholders in the green innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in Africa to identify and ideate solutions, organize and support innovators and entrepreneurs with a focus on empowering African youth and women. And we are here today to discuss emerging markets in the green sectors of Africa. We are here together with different speakers, panelists, who I will introduce in a minute. Maybe to also introduce the project partners. The Green Innovations project was initiated by the United Nations University, and has also partners involved. Among them are the Pan-African University Institute for Water and Energy Sciences, which is called PAUIS in short, and then the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Also, AfriLabs is part of the group, and VC4A, the organization I represent, is a proud partner of this initiative. This all is funded by the International Development Research Center, IDRC, from Canada. And we are here today with different speakers. Mr. Fortune Chukwu, who is a data and research associate at Brighter Bridges, who will present a very interesting research piece that they have brought out on behalf of the project. We also have Bankola Oloruntuba, who is the director of the Climate Innovation Center in Nigeria, NCIC. We have Fadila Chumba, who's the director of ABAN. And then I'm the host today. My name is Bertel van Vught, and I'm the director of operations at VC4A. VC4A is an organization that is connecting startup entrepreneurs to opportunities at scale. We do this through an online platform, which is vc4a.com, but we're also involved in many different entrepreneurship support projects across Africa and also Latin America, to do the same thing, to connect entrepreneurs at different stages of their development to the opportunities they need to succeed. I would like to give the floor to our panelists, but I see not everybody is here yet. So I think we will just kick off with Chukwu, Fortune Chukwu, who will present the main outcomes of the research that they have done on the green innovation space in Africa. After he is done, we will have a panel discussion with the people I just introduced. And after that, we will also open the floor for questions from the audience. So whenever you have a question during the presentation of Chukwu, or when there are other questions coming up later, please write them down or put them in the chat, and we will get to these at the very end of the call. So without further ado, Fortune, over to you, and take it away.
All right, thanks, Bertil. Good morning, everyone. I'll just share my screen and then start. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Fortune Chukwu. I'm a data and research associate at Brighter Bridges. Brighter is a data-driven research firm, and we collect, curate, and visualize information about underserved markets. And we worked with innovation on this study, mapping the green innovation landscape in Africa. And over the next 15 minutes, I'll be sharing findings from the study. So I'll go through this sort of sections. The objective of the study, like I said initially, was to sort of explore the space, identify the gaps, the challenges that entrepreneurs face, and also to, examine the conditions for growing, for creating frugal innovations. These are innovations, that don't rely on complex technology and that are born out of necessity, and then also sort of explore how to scale and catalyze these innovations across Africa. And for us to be able to work on this study, we leveraged insights from experts within the space through key informant interviews, and this was used to sort of contextualize our findings from the quantitative study. And our research approach, we use a mixed methods approach where we leverage data from Brighter Intelligence, which is our deals database, which comprises over 300 funded startups within the green space, more than 250 investors, and more than 40 support organizations within the green innovation landscape. And the time frame for this was between 2015 and April 2023. We only considered publicly announced deals, and we also conducted desk research to be able to get information about the green support initiatives and policies. And like I mentioned initially, we spoke to experts within the space to get a richer understanding, and also to kind of validate our findings from the quantitative study. And then we developed a green innovation ecosystem, to be able to categorize, to be able to categorize and explore the segments which are relevant, for this study. And based on this, we're able to look at the gaps, the challenges that were specific to each category, and also provide recommendations. And you'll find in the report recommendations that are targeted within these categories. Some of the key findings that from the study I'll be discussing in the course of my presentation. Now, looking at the state of the green innovation landscape in Africa, we see an active support landscape, and this includes, support which is provided by tech hubs, by corporate, investors, by impact investors, philanthropic organizations as well. They count more than 40 of them. And these organizations are providing targeted support. So if you look at the broader landscape in Africa, the tech ecosystem, there are over 1,000 support organizations that provide support that is relevant to climate innovators. But for this study, we looked at organizations that are providing tailored support, and we find them within these key categories. Just to flag that this is a selection of organizations. It might be some of them that offer more more support across the categories, and there could be more so that we haven't captured here. But we find that these more than 40 organizations provide training and mentorship programs, access to networks. Some of them even offer funding to innovators. And we find that innovators within this space need targeted support. The kind of programs that they offer, they need support with they need business support. They need support with measuring the impact, because this is a high impact sector. And some of the organizations here, like Catapult Accelerator, are offering such targeted support to help innovators, to build solutions that have the potential to generate high impact, but also financial returns. And then within the funding landscape, we see more than $3 billion of funding that has gone into the ecosystem between the time period of January 5th, 2015 and April 2023. When you compare this to the share of funding that has gone into African tech ecosystem within the period, that's 16%. And that's only behind fintech. Fintech has captured 44%. And the funding into cleantech is more than what has gone into e-commerce, which is at 11%, and health sector, which is at 7%. So there's increasing interest and attention from global and local investors. And some of what's driving this is the push from global organizations and countries to promote sustainable development. We've seen organizations like the AFDB helping governments to move from a brown sector, to a green sector, which pushes and which drives economic growth without negatively impacting the environment. And through this, we've seen the launch of climate-focused funds, by impact investors such as Persistent Energy, Sun Funder, and we're also seeing, private investors, commercial investors as well, who are sort of exploring opportunities within this sector. And then when we look at the breakdown of funding by the high-level categories we considered for the study, we see that renewable energy captures a massive amount of the share, 88%. And within renewable energy, we see, solar energy solutions, which include solar home systems, solar kiosks, pay-as-you-go, that have, received huge adoption in Africa, accounting for 80% of funding, to this space. And a few deals, a few companies account for the majority of the funding into this space. We see companies, raising growth stage funding, series from between Series A and Series D, attracting for a large amount of a large share of this, including Sun King, M-KOPA, Zola Electric. However, across other sectors as well, we're seeing sort of growing interest, in the agri-food space. While it sort of lags behind renewable energy, we're still seeing increased interest there, capturing 7%, and the breakdown as well. I'll be speaking more on this through my presentation. And in terms of the growth stages, so at Brighter, what we do is we consider the volume of funding and the number of deals to be able to sort of, explain, what's going on within the investment landscape. Because if we look at the volume of funding alone, it skews the data and it paints the wrong picture. So when we look at the volume of funding, we see that this is being captured largely by growth stage companies, from Series A, raising Series A to Series D rounds. And very few companies account for the majority of this deal. However, when we look at the deal activity, we see that, it's more in the early stages, in pre-seed round, where there are accelerator programs, there are incubator programs, the organizations like the Kenya and Nigerian Climate Innovation Center, and they provide, some kind of support, financial support for innovators. And this is happening, 54% of this deal activity is happening at the early stages. And in terms of the geography, we see that Kenya, accounts for the majority of this funding. And in part, this is due to the government's, efforts in establishing and enforcing clear policies to drive growth within the system, within the ecosystem. We see that in Kenya, 70% of its electricity is provided, from renewable energy sources such as hydro, and the government, and other development support development organizations, which form a large part of the Kenyan ecosystem, have also launched initiatives, to drive growth within the sector. And we see this also in East Africa, which Kenya is a large part of, attracting the largest volume and the number of deals. Then also in West Africa, which Nigeria is a part of, comes second, then followed by South Africa, and also North Africa. Then in terms of the funding, to the demographic, we see that, it's skewed to male-founded green startups. They've captured more than 80% of the funding volume. But then when you deep dive into, the breakdown of funding by the different gender demographic, we see that renewable energy, for male-founded startups have captured both the larger volume of funding and the larger deal activity. So the more deals have brought in the largest funding. But then we see this when we compare this to the female co-founded startups, we see that more deals are happening in the agri-tech space. However, there's more funding, that's captured by renewable energy. The amount of funding that's been captured by agri-founded female startups is less than $5 million. And just to note also that the funding, into the renewable energy sector is captured, two companies account for the majority of this deal. Mobility for Africa, a South African-based startup, and Africa Green Co. So there's a huge sort of disparity, between the number of deals where the activity of deal is happening, and also the amount of funding that is being brought in. And then when we look at the emerging sectors, we see within renewable energy, we see e-mobility, we see smart metering systems. E-mobility is very important because it helps Africans move. So e-mobility startups are providing, solutions, affordable solutions for Africans to move, which helps them to be productive, help them to make money. And then within the blue tech space, we see small scale fisheries and agriculture. There's a drive, to develop, and reduce degradation of environmental resources within the agro space and coaching. This is to improve food security in Africa. The factors driving waste management, is waste recycling and organic waste. To see protein, and looking and providing alternative sources of protein for farm fields and water access, providing quality access to water. So these are some of the factors that are driving the growth within the sector. And then just quickly looking at some of the challenges, of course, green solutions are very capital intensive. It takes a long time, a long maturity periods for these startups. And most investors are risk averse, and becomes a challenge for innovators to raise funding. There's limited access to capital, which is linked to the first challenge. There's poor human capital development. Many innovators do not have the skills, within the sector to be able to develop the product, and also business environment, and creating a product, getting licenses and permits. It can be quite tedious for many of these innovators. And some of the opportunities there, that we identified for innovators within the space is building for the global market. We've seen local innovations that have been able to scale across the different regions in Africa, and also even across the shores of Africa. And then we see the opportunities there for solving environmental challenges for businesses. Businesses have environmental challenges, and because of the agile nature of startups, they're able to solve these challenges, through open innovation, for instance, for larger corporates, and then also plugging infrastructure gaps, empowering Africans to generate income, and through productive use. We're seeing this happening, particularly in the renewable energy space, where these companies are offering solutions, helping Africans to be able to generate income. And then some of the conditions that we identified for creating and scaling green innovations in Africa, an enabling environment is very important, making it easy for Africans to launch and to grow their companies. Tailored programs, which are being offered by ESOs, but more of this is needed. And public and private sector investment, with organizations, donor organizations, like DFIs providing funding, providing patient capital, that then sort of helps to pull in private investors. Market knowledge, having a knowledge, having the right capacity, to be able to create solutions. Science and technology development. Many African countries, the investment in science and technology is very low. So increasing R&D funding is very key. And in the study, we highlighted, sort of frugal policies that are helping the growth of this of innovations within the sectors, and we highlighted them. This is only a selection of some of them. And some of the recommendations that we highlighted, to scale green innovations in Africa, is first, innovators have to, build businesses and products that have, potential for financial returns and impact, not just focusing on impact alone. Investors at the end of the day, investors want to make money. Investors want to generate returns, for their funds. And, the best way to attract investors, is to have, to be able to show and demonstrate traction, but also the impact, not harming the environment, but also early stage entrepreneurs need different funding facilities, facilities that are non-dilutive, grants, blended finance, there are different funding instruments that early stage entrepreneurs need to be able to build and test their solutions. They also tailored support, which I've spoken about, more late stage capital, and this will show that there's opportunity for scaling, for scalability. And this will produce the big winners and the success stories. M-KOPA, for instance, is a success story. They've received support from DFIs like the British International Investment, BII, and is also then pulled in more private investors and commercial investors. Government supports, increasing funding, R&D funding to drive this sector. Regulators, providing clearer regulations, helping with permits and licenses and increasing the speed, to develop innovations. Some of them, could be like sandboxes, like in fintech, we saw how fintech scaled. The regulators, provided sandboxes that enabled innovators to be able to test their solutions, within a confined environment. So something similar to that within the green space will actually help to catalyze its growth. And also, providing a supportive environment, reducing bottlenecks, providing clarity, that can help green innovators to build their products. And these are, that's all. And I'm happy to take any questions and engage for the rest of the presentation. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Fortune. There will be a moment for questions from the audience later in the call. Maybe before we go to our panelists, if you think about all the findings and all of the things you just presented, what to you is sort of the thing you learned during this exercise, or something that you didn't expect maybe to find before you started this? Is there anything you can say about that?
Yeah, thanks. So now we've known that Kenya is, Kenya has a large concentration of development organizations. So it wasn't surprising seeing that they were leading, in terms of the funding there. But I think something that sort of caught my interest and my attention was seeing that, within the renewable energy sector, female-founded startups in South Africa, have captured the largest amount of funding within the sector. I would have expected, Kenya as well to lead in that regard, but we see that, happening there. But again, two companies account for the majority of these deals, Mobility for Africa and GreenCo. So I think that sort of explains it. But also just seeing the policies that have been, launched to scale green innovations. Again, Kenya is very active within the space. The government has launched many policies and many initiatives. And it was interesting to see that, particularly with the involvement of the development organization. I think when you compare that to the other markets, South Africa, the other big four markets, South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, they're sort of more private driven. Kenya has led because of this active support of development organizations, and you see them leading in the agri-tech sector and forestry, for instance, Sikomaza and other companies, launching and raising large rounds. But the opportunities for other organizations, for other ecosystems, for other of the big four ecosystems, or even smaller markets, to be able to attract funding, like Rwanda, for instance, attracting majority of this funding. And so yeah, these are some of the interesting findings for me.
Right. Yeah, great. Thanks. All right, so let's move on to our panelists. I would like to start with Ms. Fadila Chumba, who is the director of ABAN, the Africa Business Angels Network. Fadila, maybe you want to introduce yourself briefly to the audience, and then maybe after that you can also start by just responding to what you just saw for the presentation of Fortune, and maybe some first reactions on what he presented.
Hi, Belton. Hey, good morning, everyone. It's a great honor to join you this morning. My name is Fadila Chumba, and I'm the CEO at the African Business Angel Network. So essentially, ABAN is the Pan-African organization for angel network across the continent. Established in 2015, with 6 networks, we have grown to 72 angel networks across 35 African countries. And last year, just to give you a little bit of a context, last year, angel investors across the continent have deployed together $22.5 million across 408 deals on the continent. So essentially, I want to thanks Fortune for this brilliant presentation and giving us a great context when it comes to green economy on the continent. And I must admit that angel investors, which is a very nascent concept on the continent, has evolved over time. And our angel investors have moved from sector agnostic to sector specific, right? Whereby they were very much inclined before to just spray it and pray, investing in every single sector and hoping that they will make it, right? And they will be able to exit and generate revenue and be happy about it. But over time, they have gained so much experience on angel investing, but if they also understand the risk associated to being angel investors and supporting early stage startup. And because of that experience gain, they have started refining their own interests and started also focusing on specific sectors. And some of these sectors that have emerged over a few years include climate smart agriculture, clean technology, digital trade, smart cities. So essentially, we have now a pool of individuals based on the continent and the diaspora that are coming together, driven by common interests and supporting companies that are emerging within the sector. So what we're seeing, of course, is that within the continent itself, there are a diversity in terms of maturity level and capability, driven highly by the ecosystem of each of these sectors of activities, especially pertaining to green economy. And Fortune rightly said that for those where we see high maturity level and high capability level are highly driven by the involvement of multiple stakeholders, from accelerator program that have been funded and supported to grow these specific founders, to government implication in making sure that the environment is as conducive as possible, right? So from our end as angel investors, one thing that we have been working for the past 3 years is how do we facilitate investment in green economy? And it did require us to have a very specific approach. So one thing that we have taken into account was, number one, emphasize on training related to green economy, making sure that we're able to gather specific angel investors together, reinforce capacity building, and making sure that they have the right tools, they have a better understanding of the risk associated to investing in green economy, because it's a very specific sector that require a very specific fundamentals to make it work. And after this was established, one thing that we have done was to create a specific vehicle, an investment vehicle that is currently based in a domicile in Rwanda. And with that specific vehicle, we are structured in such a way that we could pull in capital for multiple individual angel investors across the continent and the diaspora to increase the pool of capital available to the benefiting company. And after structuring this vehicle, we were able to test it, and we're confident to say that this can work, right? We had our first transaction in a company called Legendary Foods that had the participation of more than 6 angel investors from multiple jurisdictions. And we're able to pull the capital together and invest. So the nutshell is that the green economy implies, well, a very specific funding mechanism that requires the consideration of the maturity of the ecosystem itself, its market, the supporting system around it, and making sure specifically that there are follow-up rounds of fundings available to continuing investing in those early stage companies that are been supported by early stage investors to date. So I'm just going to pause there, Belton, and see how it goes.
Yeah, thanks, Fadila. Thanks for that overview. That's great. Let's move over to our other panelist, Mr. Bankole Olorontoba. He is the director of the Nigeria Climate Innovation Center. Among many other things he's doing, or he has been doing. Please, Bankole, join us and introduce yourself to the audience. And also maybe you can give a sort of a first reaction on the research that Fortune presented. Bankole, are you with us? I see you're in the call.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, or rather, it's still morning. I guess Lagos makes you leave a couple of hours earlier. Thank you so much, Bertil, and it's quite a pleasure to be here. Fortune, I think you've done a great job, at least from the perspective from where your reports came in. But also it would be great, there are still a few knowledge gaps that we sort of have to share within the African perspective of how the green economy can scale. So the NCIC, as you know, is part of a network of other CICs in Africa. And the CICs all stems from the World Bank Climate Technology Program, that ran, I think, between 2012 or 2014 thereof, up to about now. To about 2018 when the NCIC was getting started. And the CIC is to grow the potentials of a green economy, in their individual countries. So you see CICs like Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya run similar business model. We share the same logo, and we focus on slightly different thematic areas according to the gaps within our countries. So for Nigeria, when the NCIC was getting started, our 4 major areas were on renewable energy, circular economy, which is waste management, water and agriculture, and food security. But then going through a couple of startup programs and sector development programs and green financing activities in the last 5 years, we've come to also understand and also agree with Fortune that renewable energy, not just only renewable energy, solar particularly, has been that 80% or that 80-something% or even 90+% of green financing in Africa. And now the solar technology is not really new, as we all know. It was just what I think skills solar is market accessibility and market modeling. Because energy energy gap is a huge challenge in Africa. Hence, you found that the lowest hanging fruit for green economy to kickstart in Africa would have been renewable energy, which is the solar. But then when you drive it a little bit further, like a decade into this whole green economy industry, or rather NCIC has been about half a decade now. We got to realize that circular economy actually is a bigger market, right? Because circular economy stems with, or rather deals with everything that we consume, that we waste and reuse as something else. So for as long as there's a consumption in any sector, there's bound to be a waste, and that becomes a resource for another sector. And even in terms of energy, circular economy plays a huge role also in other forms of renewable energy. So you've got the nature-based types, which is the solar, geothermal, and not so much is happening in geothermal because of regional issues and climate setups, right? But if you look at countries like Nigeria, where sunlight is of abundance, it is evident, it is smart to know that the first types of model we should use to be able to kick off a green economy will have been solar market. And so the solar market, gathered so much investment, largely because there's a large market of need and everybody needs to go there. And one of the things that the NCI has also found out again is that when you look at circular economy, it can equally provide for you energy. as much as it can provide to you, you know, other forms of resources, from food to clothing to shoes, name it. Name any other industry that you can think of. This circular economy market also, you know, can be able to fit it. So again, we also have to think about the models of how startup activities happen within the green economy, right? I think it would be wrong if we call renewable energy businesses startups, because these are mainly project developers, right? Find the market, design it, tell you how the money will come. There is no innovation in technology. It's just basically how much are we going to pay? How is it going to be paid? And, you know, through which model is it going to be paid? So, I mean, possibly you might say what maybe smart metering and energy efficiency will have been, you know, some of those components that feed into that renewable energy market. And so, but when you look at the circular economy market, it holds a whole different ballgame, right? People are changing, you know, turning plastics into something else. People are turning coconuts into something else. People are turning water hyacinth, which grows on the, you know, on the water as waste, into something else. People are turning municipal solid waste, you know, sewage tanks into gas and all those several other things. So there are so many innovative sort of engineering type of possibilities within this green economy that we seriously have to rethink our investment model. And let's not do the mistake to use the template of digital startups to use for the green economy to be a total disaster. And because the green economy is more equipment tangible and is more physical tangible, so there are issues of safety and all those different things. So our thinking just have to be a bit more different. And, you know, we can use that to sort of drive the kind of engagement that we've done with both government, private sector, and quite a number. And I think that is a very interesting economy. And I mean, as the conversations go on, I'm sure that we can share more thoughts on how, you know, we can pick up this ecosystem, you know, a lot faster. Thank you.
Thanks, Mankole. Yeah, you already mentioned it towards the end. You were saying, you know, we cannot just copy paste the funding models that we've seen being used for fintechs, for instance, that are very asset light, and that can scale rapidly through technology for the green sector, as the green sector is often quite asset heavy. Maybe Fadila, you were talking about a recent transaction that you've done. I can imagine that for angels, this is also sometimes challenging, right? Because for large projects, you need large upfront investments to realize. How are you tackling this or other sort of hurdles that the green economy is facing when it comes to financing?
Yeah, there's no doubt that when it comes to green economy or green ventures, sometimes requires a lot of heavy capex, right? There's no doubt. But we are very much in the realm of innovation, which means that we tend to focus on innovative products and services that are part of the value chain of the green economy. Therefore, requiring lower capital at the early stage, and perhaps later on would require larger capital amount to scale up. So we're very, very meticulous on how we select the companies that fit within the our investment criteria, our risk appetite, which of course is very much aligned with the nature of angel investors contributing to the growth of our economy, right? And beyond that, I think when Fortune was presenting, he mentioned something very important in terms of a number of deals, which tend to be extremely higher, but attracting less support from that early stage. And I think that's where our focus is. How do we make sure that those deals that are at pre-seed level, coming at a high volume, solving issues related to climate, sustainable development, do have enough support so that they could scale to attract larger capital amounts? That's where the biggest issue is. And one way we have been thinking about this is maybe it requires a multiple funder approach. Not only the involvement of early stage investors, angel investor like ourselves, but also the contribution of venture debt VCs to deliberately power the growth journey of these startups so that they can move from pre-seed level to scale-up level and attract additional funding. So the approach has been very deliberate. And beyond that, maybe angel investors and VC companies and venture debts are not enough. Perhaps the contribution of other DFIs coming with a grant support that are going together into this company could also help. Because what we have seen in the past is that this company will unlock grants that are separate from venture investment. Therefore, it will have an issue related to due diligence, have an issue related to supporting and supporting and monitoring the progress of these companies. And the advantage that we'll have by having this multiple approach will be that we will have a situation where these founders now don't only have capital, but they do also have the technical support to go from that stage to the growth stage.
Right.
So our approach has been very deliberate, and we hope that, well, we're kind of confident that it can yield greater impact and make everyone happy, especially given that when you talk about climate smart agriculture, it's very appealing to our angel investors because it's a great source of job creation.
Right, right. Thanks. Thank you. Fortune, I think when Fadila was talking, I was also thinking about the role of governments. And I know, for instance, in Germany, because of the incentives that were given to small companies and to farmers to install solar panels, that has really spurred the innovation in solar panels for the whole world to benefit from it, because they were one of the first a decade or more ago. What do you think is the role for African governments in this to also incentivize investors and others to also buy these kinds of systems or invest in these kinds of solutions? Do you have anything to say about that?
Yes, thanks for the question, Bertu. Yeah, so in the report, we actually highlighted, approaches that the government can take, sort of like a stick and carrot approach, if you will. So in terms of, the carrot here would be offering incentives, fiscal and tax incentives for investors. Particularly, we've seen this work in the renewable energy sector, where these incentives have been offered for renewable energy projects, offering incentives around capital gains, and is driven in investors. We've seen this in South Africa, for instance, and also help taxing more harmful products. Imposing taxation on more harmful products would then sort of help to sort of drive that consumer change. Business behavior as well, help alter it in a way so that organizations are incentivized to shift to, more greener products and more greener solutions. And also, of course, relocating investments, from sectors and from, industries that are harmful to the environment to more greener environments, helping, and this could help to, help to achieve sustainable goals. So there are particular policies and particular incentives, that we highlighted within the study. And some of these initiatives are within each of the categories, within smart agriculture. There's the smart agriculture implementation framework, by Kenya, and it helps to provide guidance on innovative, initiatives that are addressing climate change. And this was, established by the government. There are within other sectors in South Africa as well. There's a comprehensive maritime transport policy. So there are several policies within these categories, that help to provide, clearance, clarity, and guidance on how to develop solutions. And also, it helps innovators who are coming to the space, because a number of many of these sectors are heavily regulated. Water management, for instance, they can't just build a solution. There are permits that you need to get, there are guidelines, and providing these clear guidelines, will just help innovators to know how to build solutions.
Right. So it looks like South Africa is leading the way then when it comes to Africa. They have the
well, yeah. So I mean, Kenya is heavily present here. Like I said, there's a large presence of development organizations within the sector, and the government is also, stepping in also to provide, the needed support. But yes, South Africa is doing quite well as well. In terms of the broader investment, South Africa, the Section J12 investment, helped to pull in capital from private investors. And it's helped broadly within the within the tech ecosystem in South Africa. We see the SASME fund, which was developed as a result, and then more private and commercial investors came in, and funding the funds that then invest in startups. And then we see angel investors springing up as well. But yeah, Kenya, South Africa, in Egypt, and also in Nigeria as well, there are policies in Tunisia. There are policies, within particular sectors, but it'll be great to see, like a broader, policy that just, provides more guidance and clarity on how to start a business, ease of business registration, helping, innovators to secure permits, and also maybe just innovation programs, supported by the government. We're doing a study currently in Latin America. In Latin America, we see Chile. The government launched a program, Startup Chile, and it helped, it helped to build and catalyze the innovation ecosystem. It helps to attract talents from outside. You had foreign innovators coming into the country to launch businesses, and then that's built that ecosystem. And there was a unicorn that was built, a food unicorn, that was built as a result of this because of the government involvement, launching a program that then provided support training and also grant funding for innovators. So there's a lot the government can do within this space.
Right. Well, that leads me to Bankole, with the work you're doing at NCIC, and also you were saying, like installing solar systems is not necessarily innovation. It's just applying existing technology, and it's very much needed. But when it comes to real innovation and also indigenous innovation, what are the roles of incubators and accelerators here? And can you share maybe some of the learnings or best practices that you've gained by doing the work you're doing?
All right, thanks, Berto. So right, incubators still, again, will continue to be relevant, in the scheme of things here. But the kinds of incubation that will hold water within this economy, right, are not your typical digital innovation hubs. They are mostly two basic types. Either you're making, or you're designing, or in terms of models or systems, or entrepreneurship capacity and co. But the one that will really accelerate or scale green innovations in Africa will be the makers, right? Because the green economy, as we said, or as I've shared, well, it's more tangible, when it comes to products, right? Possibly the digital issues you might have there will be automation process, data collection, operationalization of models, maybe energy efficiency, and a few other things, right, around data, carbon credit calculations, and all the stuff. But for you to get these things, you need tangible devices to use to gather what you need, right? If I'm going to gather CO2 from the atmosphere, I will have to design and build a device that will gather CO2 from the atmosphere and convert to water. And I can use digital interface to calculate and monitor and do all those different things. So within the green space, digital systems don't just stand alone, right? They need an existing tangible to be connected to in one way or the other, to be able to try. So even if you're trying to sell carbon credit, you need to have a project that will gather the carbon credits for you, that will be processed, and then, before you're being given that carbon credit before you can trade. So if you look at that, right, that gives you a whole lot of opportunity on how the sort of thinkings that can happen within accelerators, can work out. Because it's definitely not your typical, I have an idea, I do an app and then it solves it all. It's mostly that I have an idea, I can build this. So there's a lot of science, engineering, and electricals also involved. Like for instance, one of our startups, or rather, some of the startups we had in our first cohort was PowerStove. And PowerStove for us has been one of the proudest, that we've seen, right? They've gone ahead to leap in multiple bounds because they have a product that needs to be used, right? And so in that product, they've redesigned and continue to improve on it and iterate on it to the point of you have a clean cooking stove that uses briquettes, to burn. And then, that same clean cooking stove has an IoT, component to it and has a carbon credit calculator also attached to it. You can charge your phone, you can charge your, your devices and all those things because the stove is cooking, right? And the stove leverages on waste that is being, called briquettes, to be able to power it. And briquettes, burn less and burns longer, right? And so with all these kind of devices, this sort of solutions, there are multiple stage markets. And so incubators will continuously help you to see things from a bird's eye view, whereby many times innovators don't see because they are narrowly focused to a particular sector. And also incubators have that possibility to improve on cluster systems. So for instance, at the NCIC, there was this issue around plastic collection model that we were not sure how it will work because Coca-Cola has tried a bit, to see how they can scale collection. And we designed a project for about 6 different states, whereby we work with 6 middle-sized SMEs and about 1,000 waste collectors to be able to collect about 9,000 metric tons, within a year or two, and then supported with more infrastructural things like balers and co, that's going to help to, to put the plastics together, scales and all those different things. And so you see that within this green space, the models at which you think of innovation are not your typical type of system where you do within the digital space. And so for this, there's a whole lot of issue even around product adoption. It's more around behavioral change issues. Like for instance, you tell someone that I use your sewage tank, right? Where all your personal disposables and everything, from the home goes to, and then I convert it into gas to use to cook. Someone will tell you that, oh, wouldn't that smell? I mean, I don't understand. And then someone tells you, oh, I use briquettes from cow dung, rice cobs, and co. And they tell you, oh, I can't roast my meat with it. It's likely going to, smell and co.
Understood.
So there's a whole lot of issues around product adoption. And so looking at those matrix numbers about, first round, second round, and, looking at how you can collect, have customers and clientele, it's a bit different. So which is why we say that if we are going to approach the green economy for the scale of in Africa in terms of startup and innovation, we need to have a different thinking on how we're going to lead investment, on how we're going to lead product development, and also market engagement. Because if we use the same digital innovation template, it will be a disaster.
Yeah, understood.
Kind of financing
we need to round up, Colin,
right?
because we also have questions from the audience. But I think you made your point very clear, and it's noted and well heard. We have a question from Flaubert. Maybe you want to unmute and ask the question and sort of also direct it to one of the panelists if it wasn't answered yet. Flaubert, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, clearly.
Okay, thank you so much. It has been a very exciting discussion so far. And my question was directed, I would say, to the core team itself. I was wondering whether there is some work with African policymakers to address some of the issues that have been identified so far, and also see how to leverage the opportunities that are clearly emerging out there. And I saw that from the investment side, IBAN is already doing a lot. It's already doing a lot in terms of mobilizing private capital and working with investors for them to better understand the green economy in Africa, the risks, the opportunities, and so on and so forth. So what about the policy front?
Fadila, you wanna say something about that?
Right. So, listen, thank you so much for the question, Flaubert. So, what we have the approach, I tend to say that at ABAN we are as innovative as possible, and we go for the low-hanging fruit, while in the background we work with key stakeholders, especially when it comes to policy making, to ease the way. And one point that I want to highlight here is that it's very important that we are part of the educational journey of those policymakers, because they have to understand, number one, the commercial viability of it. Number two, is it part of the agenda? And number three, what impact from a larger scale will it have, right? So one thing that we have done has been, number one, in terms of policy, how do we guarantee private capital mobilization with third parties, either being a guarantee fund or from another party, even from a national level? Can the Ministry of Finance provide an incentive to private investors so that we can accelerate the capital flow in those companies that are emerging at a national level? Now, from a continental level, we're looking at third-party guarantee funds, because what we need right now is more money in those early stage companies that are solving these problems, more capital. And we want to make sure that our angel investors are making repeated investments, not just one time, because that's what would move a company from the early stage to the growth stage. And we have also been engaging with, at the continental level, with policymakers, but also regional and local level, on the various grants that could be available to accelerate that process, but also what are some of the incentives that would be relevant to those founders building clean tech or clean innovations, right, in each specific environment. But we have to be wary of the fact that all of these involve multiple stakeholders, which are sometimes driven by their own agenda, right? But we remain very conscious of that fact, and it doesn't stop us from continuing engaging all these stakeholders, making sure that even if they're not able to do something today, they will be able to do something tomorrow. But I really appreciate the fact that it's an ecosystem effort, right? ABAN, focusing on early stage investment, is doing its own, but you also do have accelerators, managers, and ecosystem enablers that are also raising challenges that could be addressed from a government perspective. So, which is one of the reasons why I like this green economy business, because it's a multi-stakeholder movement. It's a multi-stakeholder involvement. And what we want to do is focusing on what we know best, which is local mobilization of capital, but making sure that other stakeholders are aware of some of the challenges that we do face and how they can ease a pathway to, of course, contribute to the growth journey of these ventures that are emerging. So this is our approach.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. We're already at the end of the hour. Time flies when you're having fun. We also have Eric Tambo on the call, who is leading the Green Innovations Initiative. Eric, maybe you want to say a few words about this webinar series and the next ones that are coming up before we close the call?
Many thanks, Patil. And just also to come back to one of the questions from Flaubert. Flaubert is our project manager at the IDRC, so the donors which enable at least to do the consultancy and the work. And I think this question was also to see how far the output of the project could serve at the policy level. We have another consultancy on the policy framework in the green ecosystem in Africa, which will also be part of one of the webinar series. This will be on the 3rd of July. We'll talk on the policy framework and enabling environment. And in this policy, we have also tried to analyze a bit the Startup Act, the policy which exists, but then on the kind of policy brief that we will design to address it to specific policymakers. So we will also go into this specification. So what are the recommendations when it's come to renewable energy, when it comes to smart agricultures? We will make it concise into a kind of 2 pages policy brief that we hope now to convene to these policymakers to address. At least that will be our approach in the frame of the project to organize the uptake of the result. So, as Bettil has mentioned, the webinars is a series. I just want quickly here to show the upcoming one. We are still finalizing the confirmation of some of the guests. The next one will be on the 12th of June, where we will talk a bit around the synergy between Research Center and TechCop. I think Bankole has mentioned, and also Fortune, the need to have knowledge-based innovation. So R&D, how far university and TechCop could collaborate together. So to come up with knowledge-based innovation, we will address this topic on the 12th of June. So, and on the 26th of June, we will also have another webinar on the gaps between climate finances and green innovation. So the climate finances, we will look at from 2 perspectives, the pledge at the UNFCCC level, so all the carbon market, the GCF fund, how far this big money that countries are pledging into this big, into the COP and all these climate conferences, how far it will help at least to support innovators, how far can we connect these pledges to innovators. I think we will talk about it on the 26th of June. And then the one on the policy framework, we had a specific consultancy on the policy framework in the green sectors, what exists and how far can we improve them. And we will talk about it on the 3rd of July. And in the 17th of July, we will have another one speaking more on the challenges of women. So women-driven green entrepreneurship, the insight and perspective. We will have a stronger focus in this webinar on women and on gender in green innovation and entrepreneurship. And follow it in 2nd of June with another one also on gender, on barriers and how can we break the barriers. So it's a kind of follow-up of the first webinar on the 17th of June, which was also a consultancy in the frame of the project, analyzing the challenges, then also the recommendation on how the gender perspective should be considered in the green sectors. And we will close the series with another part or deliverable of the project, which is a blueprint for an open platform that we are also currently developing, and the blueprint for virtual TechOp services. How incubation services, TechOp, or let's say innovation space, if they want to go online, which kind of services, how could they design it through an online platform? And we will also present the prototypical open source platform that we are developing that will also help them in this process. I think that is in the nutshell. So the summary of the upcoming webinars, this one will be recorded and available on the homepage, and we will also communicate to you. We have a newsletter. We can also register to the newsletter to have the details of the planning of the upcoming webinars.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you so much. We're over time, so I would like to close the call. But before I do so, I really want to thank the panelists and also Fortune for highlighting the findings of the report. Maybe the report, is it already published? Can the link be shared in the chat, or will it be sent to the participants after?
It will be sent. We still have 1 or 2 editing to
Okay.
do on that, but since we have the email address of all of the
Of all the
participants,
participants, so you can email the report to them. Okay, great. So Fortune, is there any sort of last thing you would like to share with the audience before we break up? Very short, please.
Yeah, well, I think everything's been mentioned by the co-panelists. Really grateful to have had the opportunity to discuss this with my boss, Mr. Banks, and my madam, Fadila. Yeah, so I think in closing, green innovation, we're seeing a drive towards this globally, and Africa must not be left behind. And I think the insight that Mr. Banks provided about, maybe not categorizing solar energy, that's something I'm going to take back to my team. And I think that will be very, very relevant, because I guess if you remove, solar energy, and we can see sort of a clearer trend, of because including, solar energy and renewable energy, there sort of dwarfs the growth that's happening or development happening in other sectors. So that's a feedback I'm going to take back to my team. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. Fadila, some last wise words?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this, for bringing this together. Thank you to Eric and team, but also Belton for making this such an engaging discussion this morning, and the audience for listening. From our part, which is angel investors on the continent, they're definitely an interest from our end to support green economy products and services that are emerging on the continent. And we want to make sure that we do it the most efficient way. But by taking into account that as those founders are building these products and services, they have to look at the commercial viability of this product, but also the impact that it has on our economy. And beyond that, one thing that we keep on promoting and making sure that all the stakeholders are aware of is that we have to operate from a consolidating approach, right? We as angel investor, we have made the deliberate effort from ABAN to connect with all other stakeholders that are really relevant to this ecosystem. And I had the pleasure of visiting the Uniport at the University of Kigali, the Science and Technology University of Kigali, and I was deeply impressed by how science research are really driving and making sure that these founders are building products that are scientifically viable and relevant for our own context. And to us, it was very important because we're saying this is the source of our pipeline. Beyond accelerators and innovation hubs, we have to make sure that we are able to collaborate with university and policymakers, VC companies, venture debt, and everyone else that will make this venture a success, right? And we're more than happy to support and work and collaborate with any stakeholder on this call listening to me today in order for us to push this agenda forward and making sure that we're able to achieve tangible results. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bankole, please close us off.
All right. Thank you so much, Bertil. Thank you, Fadila. Thank you, Fortune. And also, Eric, thank you. And to everyone who spent their morning listening to us, well done. I think that the green economy in Africa is that chance for us to be able to demonstrate, in indigenous technology and growth. I think that the opportunity for us for investment here will stem more from research-backed, and a lot of research-backed innovation. For the investors and investment communities, I think that we should not shy away from all the different stratas of investment. We should take things from at a very early stage, research-backed type of investment, also all the way up to, critical infrastructure types of investment. If there's something that the NCIC is very keen about is on green finance. And we've come to realize that the green finance market is a whole bunch of hogwash. There's a whole lot of people saying a lot of big figures that are not coming down, that are not trickling down, to the market. So we need to redraft a different method. And these are not just things that policy government leaders can do. these are private sector and development finance mechanisms. So we also have to have a different model, trying to understand how commercial finance works and how, you know, development finance works. I think if we're able to do that, we within the innovation space, we can use the early stage financing model, you know, Angel network model and all that, you know, to be able to spearhead and seed fund, you know, a whole lot of, infrastructure, products, or, you know, energy or circular economy type of product. I think is an opportunity for all of us to be very interested in. It keeps evolving by the day, and we should be fast enough, you know, to catch up. So if there's any more information you need, please reach out. Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. And thanks for the panelists, and thanks for Eric Tambo and his team and all the partners in the Green Innovations project for this platform. And I think we should leave it at this. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day. And we hope to see you at the next webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.